Hey, what is happening everyone? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be unboxing and checking out something pretty awesome. Today we have something pretty special, and that would be this MSI gaming laptop. Yes, today we're going to be finally unboxing our first gaming laptop. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So here's a quick rundown on the specs right here. We got an i7-7700HQ, a GTX 1050 Ti, 8GB of DDR4 RAM, a 1TB 7200 RPM hard drive, and yes, this laptop does come in SSD variant, so you'll have an SSD built in for the OS, as well as an extra hard drive for extra space. But what we have today is the 1TB hard drive only edition. I will leave links for all of them, including the ones that do come with an SSD, in the description below. And finishing off the specs here, what we have for a display is a 15.6 IPS panel, so that is pretty good. We should be getting some pretty nice colors. And finally, the usual, the dual band AC Wi-Fi and Bluetooth stuff. So here's what the front looks like. It's pretty simple and straightforward. We got the Dragon logo right here. Nothing much going on the sides, but what we have in the back here is a bunch of information. Pretty cool layout, I gotta say. It's pretty simple and straightforward. It just tells you what you need to know, and it just pretty much highlights what makes this thing special. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and unbox it. Alright, so it seems like we have a pretty simple and straightforward unboxing experience. On the side we get the AC adapter, so it's pretty nice to see that it is a low profile charger, and what we have here is a 19.5 volt at 7.7 amps. Or 150 watt charger. Now it seems like I got the European version of the plug, but that's fine. I have replacement cables, and this of course does support 110 to 220 volts, so it can both work in North America or Europe, or pretty much wherever you are in the world. Next up we have another pocket here, and there's actually nothing. It seems like to be just a spacer. And finally, let's take out the laptop here. But first, it seems like there's another pocket under here. Let's open that up. And a quick look inside this package. Some info in Chinese. What seems to be a table of contents. A quick start guide in English, as well as a bunch of different languages. What seems to be a QC thing. A warranty service book. More stuff that I can't read. And finally, what seems to be a guide on how to reset your laptop to factory settings in a bunch of different languages. Alright, and that is pretty much it. So let's go ahead and finally take this laptop out and see what we have inside. There's also this sticker right here. I don't know what that is. Alright, so here we go. Check that out. That looks pretty nice. Yep, this thing looks beautiful. And I gotta say, I really like the red accent on the SteelSeries keyboard here. Looks pretty awesome. Let's go ahead and take a quick look on the outside and see what we have here. Now, from what I've seen, there's a pretty generous amount of ports, and you're not going to be missing out on much. So first of all, what we have here on the top is a very nice plastic finish. I did think it was aluminum at first, but I tested it with a knife and it seemed like it was plastic. That said, it is a really nice type of plastic, and it does remind me of the good old ThinkPads, except not so rubbery, but more smooth. That said, this does feel like it's going to be a fingerprint magnet, as you guys can see here already, but we'll see how it looks like by the end of this video. And finally, on the top we have the Dragon and the MSI logos. Take a look at the back. We have two ventilation holes for the GPU and CPU, and yes, we will be taking a look inside to see what it looks like and if it is easy to upgrade. Alright, so take a look at the right side. What we have here is the AC charging port, a full-size SD card reader, as well as a USB 2.0 port. Now, it would have been nice if this was a 3.0, but that's fine since you're going to be mainly using this for your external mouse. And now, if we take a look at the left side, we have a plethora of ports. So we have a Kensington lock, a full-size Ethernet port, two USB 3.0 ports, an HDMI as well as a mini display port, a Type-C port, which is nice to see, as well as two dedicated hi-fi audio ports for both your headphone and microphone. Now, this laptop claims to be able to drive two external 4K monitors. And after doing some research, it seems like the HDMI here is actually an HDMI 1.4, which maxes out at 30 Hz, which is what they claim. Now, on the other hand, with the DisplayPort here, I couldn't find any information about it, but if I have to guess, I would say it's a DisplayPort 1.4, which should be able to do 4K at 60 Hz. And finally, on the bottom here, we have four large rubber feet, a bunch of intake holes, and you can clearly see the components on the inside. So here's the RAM, here's the hard drive, and right down here is where you would find your LED indicators for your Wi-Fi power and hard drive. And these stereo speakers are right down here. You can see there's actually two pairs of speakers on both ends. Alright, so now you're probably wondering, can you open this laptop with one hand? Well, you kinda can, but let me show you what I mean here. So if you try to open it up, you'll end up lifting the laptop, and if you want to open it up with one hand, if you're in a pinch or your second hand is tied up, you can just do that. You can wiggle it up until it opens up by itself. So yeah, it looks pretty awesome. It's got a SteelSeries keyboard, and something that you're going to appreciate about MSI laptops, and that is the dedicated mouse buttons on the touchpad. Taking a look at the bottom right here, we have the usual laptop sticker with the usual information, pretty much just some highlights. Anyways, let's go ahead and give this keyboard a quick field test. So it might take me a day or so to get used to this keyboard. Other than that, it does feel pretty nice. Travel distance is pretty decent. Spacing is a bit too tight for my taste, and that's probably due to the numpad right here. This seems to be a microphone right down here as well. And at the top right corner, we got the power button, a gaming button, as well as a turbo fan button, it seems. So let's go ahead and finally turn this thing on. Okay, seems like it's actually not charged at all. Okay, so let's go ahead and charge it up, I guess. Okay, here we go. Yep, or maybe they wanted you to plug it in on the first time. That could be a feature, we'll find out. So this might have a Chinese version of the Windows. Alright, so we're in, and obviously it's a Chinese version of Windows. And regarding the battery, yes, it is fully charged out of the box, so that's good. You just need to plug it in on the first startup, which is important. And make sure it's fully charged up before you start using it and whatnot. That said, we'll be back in just a bit after I reinstall Windows on this thing. Anyways, here we go. Alright, we're back. So I went ahead and reinstalled Windows, which is something I totally recommend you do. Regardless of what version of Windows you have, whether it's Chinese or English, you definitely want to reinstall your Windows on a laptop. As long as you know what you're doing. Really, there's nothing that can go wrong while doing so. That said, since this laptop only came with a hard drive, it was extremely slow. Especially with the few apps that I installed with it, like Dragon Center, which is kind of useful in some cases, maybe not. It's basically a monitoring program with little features here and there. That said, you don't really need it, but boot times and loading things and pretty much anything that you try to do with Windows on the hard drive, it is just extremely slow. So if you're planning to get this laptop or any laptop in 2017, do yourself a favor and get a laptop that has an SSD built into it. Again, I'll leave links for the ones that do come with an SSD as well as a hard drive in the description below if you guys are interested in this guy right here. With that said, let's take a look at the hard drive speed. And overall, for a 7200 RPM hard drive, it's not bad at all. It's doing pretty good for the read and write speeds. Pretty decent. Of course, for the 4K transfer speeds, they're pretty slow. It's a hard drive, so it is to be expected. That said, if you do get the one with the SSD, it will come with an NVMe SSD, which in some cases can be up to 30 times faster than a hard drive. And it's way faster than a regular SATA SSD. That said, after having to experience Windows on a hard drive once again in a long time, I just could not take it, and I went ahead and ripped off the M.2 NVMe SSD from my Xiaomi laptop and installed it on this guy right here. So what you see here is actually the Windows from the Xiaomi laptop that I've reviewed previously. If you want to check the review for it, I'll leave it in the description below. And the difference, as you'd guess, is just insane. It's too fast, and there's a big difference. Do yourself a favor and get one with an SSD. One last thing before we go ahead and check out some benchmarks and gaming benchmarks, let's go ahead and take a look at the task manager here. So we got 4 cores, 8 threads. It's an i7, and it can turbo up all the way to 3.8 or so, probably 4. I'll leave more information over here. And now with nothing running in the background, is idling at around 1%, which is pretty good. And take a look at the RAM, it usually hovers around 2 GB of usage, so you have about 6 GB of RAM to spare, to render, play games, and do whatever you want. And since this is a DDR4 stick, yes, there's only 1 stick of RAM, which is good, so you have an extra slot to upgrade later on. It's clocked at 2400 MHz. And we will be taking a look at the insides at the end of this video. So without further ado, let's get right into the gaming benchmarks and see what the performance is like. Alright, we're back, and you guys have saw the gaming benchmarks, and they are actually very good. As you have saw, it can definitely handle AAA titles, no problem. Medium to ultra settings, no problem whatsoever. Running at 60 FPS is a breeze for this thing. Of course, games that are not optimized, such as PUBG, are not going to run as well. That said, it was still very playable with the usual settings that you'd probably want on. PUBG, Battlefield 1, and Battlefront, I did have the FOV slider maxed out because that's how I play. And of course, when you increase the FOV, you would lose some performance. So I really pushed this thing, and it could definitely handle whatever I throw at it. So there you go, performance excellent on this thing. So overall, the laptop is pretty good. It's got the performance, it looks nice, it's very minimalistic. The keyboard looks awesome, it's got a ton of ports, but there are a few complaints that I have about this thing. It may not bother you, but there are things that may bother others. So let's start with the first one, and that would be the keyboard here. Although it looks amazing, the spacing between the keys is a bit too tight. The travel distance is not very optimal. Especially for games, it will take you some time to get used to. So the WASD, the space, and the control will take some time to get used to. Of course, if this is your main machine, you will definitely get used to it over time, no problem. But I thought I'd mention that. The next thing I want to talk about is the fan. The fans here are pretty quiet when it's idling, but as soon as you start throwing anything at it, it will start ramping up. That said, there's one more thing I haven't showed you, and that would be the turbo button right over here. The turbo button, as soon as you press it, the fan speeds will go ramp up to 100%, which is a really nice option to have if you really want to cool down your laptop, or if you're about to run something really heavy on it. That said, let me show you what it sounds like when it's idling, when it's under load, and when the turbo mode is toggled. So let's do that. So yeah, it's pretty loud. That said, I've only have experience from 2 old gaming laptops, but those things would get pretty loud and eventually overheat. But with this guy, although it's a bit loud, which is to be expected from a gaming laptop, this thing does stay pretty cool, hovering around 67 degrees Celsius for the CPU and around 50 to 60 degrees Celsius for the GPU, which is actually really good for a laptop like this. It's cooling itself down very nicely. The 1050 Ti is very easy to cool, so there's no problems there. But you probably won't notice it if you have headphones or have the volume all the way up and you're playing games. Of course, you're not going to notice it, which is something I usually do. Speaking of sound, the speakers on this thing are subpar. Even with the Hemic audio drivers, it doesn't sound too good. It sounds pretty average. Maybe I'm just spoiled from the Xiaomi Air 13 laptop, which I'll be comparing to this laptop in a future video. It's going to be a video of Ultrabooks versus gaming laptop, and they both run games very well actually, and that thing has an amazing pair of speakers. So stay tuned for that. So here's a quick audio sample of what the speaker sounds like. And the last thing that I want to mention here is that this laptop has some backlight bleed. And with this model, especially around this area right here, you will notice some backlight bleed. Only in loading screens where the whole background is completely pitch black, you will definitely notice it, which kind of gets annoying. Some people may not mind it, but it's definitely something that I gotta mention. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty powerful laptop. It can do everything you need. It's got a 1050 Ti, it's got an i7, and the performance is fantastic. So if you're looking for an affordable gaming laptop like this one that not only plays games, but a laptop that can also handle editing, then this thing is worth considering. So with that said guys, that is actually pretty much it for this initial review. I will have more details in the next video. If there's something you guys want me to test out, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll try and include it in the full review, when I'll try to go in depth into this thing and see if there's anything else that might come up during my time with it. So yeah, that is pretty much it. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If it was helpful, if you did, hit the like button and subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care everyone.